Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And this week, joining us from Denver, Colorado in the US is David Wallace. Hi, David. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Vasco. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. So David is an Agile coach with 25 plus years of experience in the IT industry. He's also a passionate Agilist and the co-host of the Heart of Agile Boulder meetup group. He's currently based in Denver as a product delivery coach at Xero, which itself is a New Zealand-based cloud accounting software company. Oh my God, that's must be hard to have meetings with New Zealand offices.
The time zones do get a little bit challenging. The Australia office is even a little bit more difficult, but we've been able to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I live in Europe. I have meetings often with several other countries in the globe, and yeah, sometimes it's a bit challenging.
Absolutely, you got to be creative with your schedule.
Absolutely. All right. So, David, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and then walk us through how you ended up becoming a Scrum Master.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. So actually, when I was in school, I got my psychology degree, which of course means I went into computer software industry. So after I graduated college, ended up working as a developer for first 16 years of my career. I was doing mostly front-end web development type work. And I was working for a company. I was actually building video players, Flash and HTML5 video players. We had a new CTO come in, and he decided to outsource that part of the work we were doing. So I was like, I've got an opportunity. I can either change jobs, or I can look at my whole career and possibly even change careers. So I actually took the second option there. And I had kind of gotten tired of learning a new JavaScript library every 6 months. So I looked at it. They were hiring for their project management office, and they said they wanted to do an Agile transformation. I had never heard of Agile before at that point. That was about 8 years ago. And so I started doing research. I was like, well, this is the way I've always worked, just instinctively. So I was like, hey, can I switch over and take that role and help lead us in the transformation? So my first role doing Agile, they sent me to Scrum Master training, which of course 2 days of training is going to equip you to do a transformation. But did the transformation, did the training, and then came back and actually did help them implement a Scrum process within the company. And my first role was actually a Scrum Master product owner role combo. Don't recommend that, but that was what it was. It got me into it, and I fell in love with it, and just never looked back.
Absolutely. How do you say this? Unusual setups like having multiple roles. Another unusual setup that happens a lot is to be the manager and the Scrum Master, or the tech lead and the Scrum Master. Like, there's a lot of those unusual setups. And one of the things that we want to explore here on the podcast is how people make them work, or if not, then why not, right? So definitely interested to hear if you have some story to share with us about that dual role. But before we get into that, today's Monday, so we'll talk about failures and the things that didn't go as well as we expected. So share that story with us. Walk us through how that story developed over time, David, and we'll dive into the details, the conclusions later on, but walk us through the story first.
I would say the biggest incident I've had where I felt like it was really a failure. I had actually been doing a Scrum Master type role for several years at that point. But we had a guy that joined us in a QA role. We were really trying to work with him and get him to understand the Agile mindset and how we wanted to work as a team. But he very much wanted the developers to do their work and then hand it off to him, let him go test it while they moved on to something else. So kind of like mini waterfall within the sprints. And we were really trying to get him to collaborate more with the development team and work with them on a day-to-day process and make sure that he was helping them. We were trying to do test-driven development, but he just did not want to accept the agile mindset and that whole way of working. And so over a period of several months caused great frustration for the development team, the managers, the product owner, like everybody was frustrated and he was frustrated. And I really felt like, I was trying to just teach him the process. I was trying to teach him the rules, teach him all of this. And in the end, he ended up leaving the company. And before he left, I sat down with him and just talked to him. And we were able to get really honest with each other and have a heart to heart. And I realized that he'd been frustrated because he had no interest in learning Agile mindset. And it just wasn't a right culture fit. And had I been able to have that conversation with him earlier on, we could have saved a lot of people a lot of frustration and heartache, and we would have actually been able to deliver value to our customers sooner as well. So one of the things I took away from that is not everybody is open to the Agile mindset. And just teaching process, teaching rules, teaching techniques isn't enough. You have to be able to get into that mindset and really think about it and approach things that way, not focus on the rules. And so that's, I think, the moment that my switch flipped to, oh, wait a minute. It's not about the rules. It's about the way we think about our work and the way we approach that. And it's really changed the way I approach my role going forward from that point.
You said something there that I think is rather important to explore a little bit further. And you said it's not about the rules, it's about the way we think about our work. So what is the difference between somebody who is embracing Scrum and somebody who, as you said and described that character just a moment ago, had no interest in learning what the Agile mindset it was? Like, what is the difference? Because mindset is a bit fuzzy. Let's get more detailed and concrete about it. What is the difference between those two perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely. So any framework, whether it's Scrum, Kanban, XP, whatever, it's based SAFe, I would say, is especially an example of this. There's a lot of rules and constraints that are built around the framework to help kind of guide the process. And that's just inherent in what a framework is. But there's no framework that out of the box, off the shelf, is going to meet the need of every company. So in this, he wanted to, like, even with us doing Scrum, he would look at it and he would read through the Scrum guide and be like, nope, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be doing this. And I kept having to talk to him like, okay, well, that doesn't work for the way we're working. We have to adjust the rules based on the needs of the team and the organization. And so he wanted to just follow rules. That's all he cared about is
but
what
the
are the
rules he wanted to follow came from a different book.
True. Yes.
Because
yeah.
Scrum also has rules, right? Like you have to have a time box sprint. You have to plan it at the start. You have at least now you have a retrospective at the end. You demo value, or you demo at least to stakeholders through the review. You meet every 24 hours. Those are all rules, right?
Yep. And he wanted to follow those rules, but he also wanted to like have his own rules in terms of what the QA position traditionally had always been. So he was trying to marry those two together instead of being able to adjust to a new way of thinking about testing and quality and how to make sure that we're building the right thing in the right way.
This sounds a little bit like the developers also, and different role. The developers that don't want to do TDD because they've never done TDD. Like, why should I do TDD, right? Or test-driven development, or
Absolutely.
Even why should I write unit tests? I never write any bugs, right? So I'm thinking that beyond that dichotomy of mindsets, if you will, I also think something that you pointed out, I think is good to highlight, is I also think that the history that people have affect how they see the future, right? And I can only imagine that somebody who's always done QA in a certain way, right? So you give me the code, I'll break it apart, and I'll give you a list of stuff you need to fix, right? And maybe they are even great at their job, but they are not adequate to work in a team where you need to constantly interact with each other and even help each other, right? Like in the case of the pair programming or TDD, it's a totally different mindset for a programmer, and of course continuous testing, integration, automated testing. It's a totally different mindset for a quality assurance person or a test engineer that might have learned about test engineering and quality assurance before Agile was a thing.
Absolutely. And while we do value diversity of backgrounds and diversity of thought, if you have a fixed mindset and you aren't willing to change that, then that diversity ends up becoming a burden rather than an asset. And that's what happened here is he just had a fixed mindset. And I think a fixed mindset is the enemy of Agile.
Yeah, and I think that from a perspective of, how do we look forward, it's also important to understand that there are many reasons why certain individuals don't fit the team. The practices they want to use is one of those. There are other reasons. And it's important to understand that also us as Scrum Masters, we are responsible for how the team works with each other, not just for the method that they are using, right? We are not just the guardians of Scrum. We also need to think about, are the team members interacting? And if they're not, then what's preventing it? If they interact, are they interacting in a cooperative, collaborative, and productive way? Or is it mostly about conflict? If it's conflict, what's causing the conflict, right? All of those things need to be in our mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in this case, one of my biggest failures was not getting to the root of that conflict. And it was a great learning opportunity for me. He ended up leaving the company, going to another job where he was happy. So in the long run, we all ended up with what we needed, but we could have gotten there a lot faster had I had already learned that lesson before and been able to apply it.
Well, but now, dear listener, you have learned that lesson that David just shared. So remember to apply it. David, that was a pleasure. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests help their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.